going to take that one off the board.
Not today, say the Afreeca Freecs. They're getting rid of that immediately and continuing to pay respect towards the top lane. Jace, the second ban from their side as well.
Yeah, and as you rightly said, it is a respect ban towards Zeros. We've actually seen it banned 100% against this man. Just goes to show how talented he is within the VCS and how much respect the international teams do show towards him. For the time being, we've often seen a lot of Tahm Kench bans thrown towards Phong Vũ Buffalo as well, to try and take that away from Pallet, who has shown to be much more of a defensive support, the guy that provides more of appeal for BigKoro in these big team fights. And you kind of look at Meliodas to be the big playmaker when it comes to engages.
Well, Phong Vũ Buffalo say, all right, you want to ban away some top laners? We'll ban out some top laners. They get rid of the Scion themselves, along with having removed the Alistar as first ban. Afreeca decide they're going to take out the Xayah as their final ban here in the first phase. One more to go from Phong Vũ before we head back to Afreeca for that first pick.
You would expect the Aatrox to come through, given that both the Urgot and Aatrox are the most powerful top laners in the current meta. Does leave a couple of things open. Gragas has been high priority with the Xayah taken off the board. Varus raises in priority as well. And Afreeca Freecs are saying, you know what, we want to guarantee as a strong 2 versus 2. BigKoro was a guy that really stepped up in their game versus G2. And Afreeca Freecs want to try and deny him as much power and playmaking as possible.
All right, for Phong Vũ Buffalo, the question is now, how do you want to go about this draft against Afreeca? They're going to go with the Camille locked in there for themselves. This is a flex pick. Remember, you can take Camille a couple different places, so not guaranteed to be piloted by Zeros this time around, but we will see.
Yeah, they're probably going to want to save it. That flexibility power is extremely valuable, especially given that they can also give Naul the counter pick in the middle lane, given that they are on red side. And we talked a little bit about the Gragas, and we talked about how it can be very instrumental in setting up plays as one of the more preferred junglers in the current meta. And even though they hovered it, they actually decided to move away from it, which does surprise me because when you look at Mowgli as a player, he didn't play that many games during the regular season for Afreeca Freecs, but his primary champions were things like the Zac and the Gragas, 2 big playmakers and really engaged tank or frontliners that really set up his team to start these late game fights.
Well, the Rakan locked in for Phong Vũ Buffalo. This support has seen a lot of plays so far over the first 3 days at Worlds. The most played support at 11 picks. Alistar is that number 2 at 7, so still a little ways behind him. Afreeca going to lock themselves in that Tahm Kench. Needs some saving power there for the Varus that lacks that innate mobility and ability to escape when the threats find their way onto him. And Afreeca thinking about the Ireila. This pick has seen a lot of success so far. I believe still sporting a 100% win rate over the first 3 days. We'll see if Afreeca can keep that number strong and find their first win with it here today.
Yeah, that's certainly the case, and it will be in the hands
90%.
of Kuro.
Damn.
90%. So close, Flowers. 9 out of 10. We've seen that Irelia come out on top, but still, that kind of implies it's a strong champion in the current meta, Flowers.
You would think. You would think that a number like a 90% win rate would insinuate there's some strength there, but Phong Vũ Buffalo is going to respond, pick themselves up the Galio.
And look at the comp that Phong Vũ currently have for themselves. Camille, Galio, Rakan. That is a lot of damage, a lot of lockdown, and a lot of team fighting prowess. They just need a little bit more damage, arguably. I mean, you do have decent damage with the Camille, of course, but what AD carry will they look to bring out? Will they go for more of the hyper carry? Will they look for something with a little bit more of a mid-game spike? So many options still available for them. Ezreal was a big pick that they often preferred during the regular season. There's also a lot of Mordekaiser games in the back pocket of BigKoro. We shall have to wait and see as we move into the second phase.
Also, with that Galio picked up by Phong Vũ, I mean, there was an interview that Ovely did with, I believe it was Jensen, in the past couple of days where he talked about, yeah, picking Galio, you really want a champ that functions as a Galio delivery system for the team fights, and Rakan and Camille just excellent at making sure that Galio has someone to make that heroic entrance with. As Taliyah and Kai'Sa are banned away. Kai'Sa, we've seen so much of this champion, and Taliyah hasn't exactly been absent from the game so far at Worlds either, but neither one of them gets to make an appearance here as the Vel'Koz ban comes out from Phong Vũ Buffalo, respecting that potential pick from Afreeca.
Exactly that. They believe that Taliyah and the Vel'Koz could still be played in the mid lane by Kuro. The Irelia, we already saw it get moved up to the top lane for Smeb yesterday in his game with KT, and so just playing the field, being careful, because remember, this Camille could still go in the top lane. We don't really know what the jungle pick is for Phong Vũ Buffalo, and with the Galio pick, they can now lock in their AD carry and keep that flexibility option available to them.
And I like seeing that kind of creativity in drafts. Always keep your opponents guessing all the way through as much as you can. Ezreal locked in for Phong Vu.
We talked a little bit about it earlier on. This is a big comfort pick for BigKoro, something that he played a lot of during the regular season of the VCS. And it's just something that when you're going up against Varus, Tahm, Kench, it is a very strong duo lane. So they're just going to go for something safe, but has a very strong mid-game spike. Things like the Trinity Force, things like the Marimune. Once those things are completed, then you can actually look to fight with the Camille, with the Galio. And while they're all diving into the front line, Ezreal can self-peel for himself and just be that reliable damage dealer in the back line.
Ezreal's one of those champions that you always wonder a little bit about coming from the NALCS. This champion was on a horrific loss streak in North America earlier on this split. I believe it was like 13 games in a row or something absolutely absurd. It seemed to be a pick that you would choose to lose lane less. Of course, if you can play the champion in a successful way, you can definitely hit those mid-game points of extreme safety and allow your team, especially your support, to roam around and open up those opportunities elsewhere. We'll see if that's the strategy that finds the victory for Phong Vu here, as Afreeca are going to pick up the Olaf and the Swain for themselves.
So Afreeca also going for the flexibility option. Ireila and Swain can both be put in mid or top, and it's all going to depend on what Phong Vu decide to lock in as their final champion of choice. Turns out that Zeros will be on the carry. We should see a carry in Kiin's hands as well. And that top lane matchup that we were so excited for, Flowers, is going to be a big part of how this game plays out.
I would not have it any other way. This is like the two sides of the coin when it comes to a hyped up top lane matchup. You can go into it thinking, oh man, we're gonna get carry versus carry. We're gonna see some top lane, some split pushing, some 1v1s, and you have Sion versus Ornn. It's like,
yep.
Boy, I hope you like wet noodle fights, because we're gonna have a lot of them, but not today. Not today. Camille versus Ireila should be an exciting matchup between these two. Kindred and Olaf in the jungle are going to be running around there. We'll see how these two decide to get involved. We know both of them can make some very, very big plays, helping those lanes out, getting people going. And I'm specifically going to be looking at how well that Kindred is able to maintain the marks as the game goes on.
Yeah, and we talked about a little bit more damage potentially, or maybe an extra tank, but PVB just going straight towards the damage option, the Rakan and the Galio acting as that primary front line. And, you know, we talked about, like, synergies and combos and how the compositions kind of work together. Camille engage followed up with the Rakan engage. You have a Galio ulti on top of that. Ezreal ulti kind of synergized with that as well. But if things go sour, Kindred ulti to save those targets should you need that reset, should you not get the initial engage that you want, or maybe you find a pick, you just throw it down and then you're able to turn things back in your favor. But it will rely on them getting kind of an early lead. They need that pressure in lanes, and with the wave clear that Galio has combined with the early laning prowess that a Camille should have against an Ireila, I'm hoping to see Meliodas try and get into the face of Mowgli, try and apply that pressure and put something on towards the sub-jungler here for Afreeca Freecs, who's now having his debut at Worlds.
And it is a moment of truth for this team here as well. If you drop this game, that means finishing the first round robin in the group stage winless for the second seed from Korea, which would defy the expectations of almost everyone out there who did their pick'em sober, which is a very, very shocking thing to see from a team that you would expect a greater performance from. They want to find the win here, go 1-2 at the end of that first round robin. It sets you up to be in an okay spot heading into the second round robin. Whereas for Phong Vu Buffalo, man, a win here, you're 2-1. You're feeling good about that.
And you certainly are. And remember, all the fans from the VCS were saying that this team is expected to be better than the Gigabyte Marines. They don't go for those crazy picks or those crazy strategies. There's no lane swaps. There's no level 6 Nocturne into the bot lane. It's just standard. We have good players. We can play the map. We can play with an advantage if we're able to get it in. They demonstrated that versus G2. G2, yes, they made a couple of mistakes, but it was PVB who punished those mistakes and then turned it into bigger and bigger and bigger advantages.
And those advantages in the game against G2 began at minute 9. This wasn't something that took an entire game to build up and then even longer to finish out. The game itself only lasted 34 minutes. And for 25 of those, it was just the Phong Vu Buffalo show.
Yeah, and a lot of it came off the back of BigKoro as well, who's ready to have a solid performance, but will he be able to do the same here today with PVB? For Afreeca Freecs, when you kind of look at their year, you know, you talked about them being currently 0-2 on the score line. The fact that this has been their most successful year overall, going back to the AD carry that we were just talking about, BigKoro, yes, he was a big reason why they were able to perform so well yesterday. Look at his KDA, look at his kill participation. This guy had some insane numbers.
Those numbers are incredible. You can see there, 1 death, 10 kills, part of almost 90% of the kills overall that his team found, as well as putting out over 700 damage per minute. BigKoro got player of the game in that match against G2 for the exact reasons I just got done explaining, and they'll be looking to put on a similar performance here today. But like you were talking about the Afreeca Freecs, this is a team that was almost perpetually stuck in 5th in the LCK, never seemed to break through that. And then this season, they seem to have turned it on, found what it was that they were lacking earlier, as now Kuro's gonna find himself taking some early damage from Meliodas here at level 2. Nothing too crazy with that gank, just putting a little bit of damage down onto Kuro, making him recognize and respect that Kindred's gonna be hanging around and not be quite as well off in that lane as he otherwise was.
Yeah, and it was Kiin that was that change, Flowers. He was the guy that came in at the beginning of this year, and he helped the team secure 2nd in spring and 3rd in summer. That's how they were able to qualify, and we haven't really seen much of this top laner yet for the Afreeca Freecs. He's a guy that was put on the Akali in their last game against the Flash Wolves. The team didn't really play around him. He wasn't finding many advantages, and you can just see he has been struggling so far at Worlds.
Definitely not what the Afreeca Freecs were hoping to see out of this guy who was so hyped up coming into Worlds 2018 as one of those players to be on the lookout no matter who you are, no matter who you're cheering for. This was a guy that people were expecting to make some big waves. Hasn't exactly had that start, but we're still only in that first round robin. Like I said, still plenty of time left to play, still plenty of time to make that mark on Summoner's Rift. As you can see, Zeros just hanging around here, has the lane shoved in early on. Mowgli decides to flash over the wall on the Olaf. This avoids any vision. This is very clever because it means you can go for this early Drake that we've seen Olafs take already so far in Worlds groups. Mowgli is very low HP and has very low mana.
He has used the smite early as well, but he's gonna get it.
He'll find that Ocean Drake, and that is Ocean #1, 4 minutes into the game. Your laners are thanking you for that one.
Uncontested by Mowgli, but now Meliodas looking for a gank up top.
Nice stun there from Kiin onto Zeros, making sure he can't get anything else out at the beginning of the gank. Kiin will escape that one with minimal damage. For all you out there looking to play solo queue in the next few days, expect some Olafs flashing over the wall at level 4.
That's how they're going to justify it. Well, I saw the Afreeca Freecs do it. That it's okay for me to do it, right? That's how that works. But I'm expecting... Ooh, actually, we may see a bit of trading up towards the top side of the map.
He's going in there, definitely getting the better of Zeros early on. Nearly takes him down. Would have needed, I believe, 2 more auto attacks to get it, so doesn't want to flash forward and risk blowing the summoner spell to not find the kill, but good job there from Kiin.
Yeah, Kiin just going to be happy with the pressure that he generates, but typically in this early laning phase, Ireila has been considered not the strongest laner, but in that situation, Kiin had a huge minion wave right behind him, and he had that slight level advantage going in his favor as well. So he could look to just dive onto Zeros, who was forced to retreat, and that's how he was able to get such a favorable trade in his favor. So good to see that from Kiin. More of what we were kind of expecting. Hopefully we see these trades continue throughout the laning phase.
Silver lining for Zeros, even though Kiin got the better of him there, Kiin did go back with slightly under enough gold to purchase the full Tiamat, so he won't have the extra wave clear potential here early on. Won't have the active on that item just yet either. As bottom side, you can see Kramer and Tusin pushing up against BigKoro and Pallet. And like you said about the Ezreal pick, this is something that you pick to stay safe. You're not picking Ezreal to say, all right, we're going to flex on him in the lane, we're going to make big things happen. You hang back, you farm up, you facilitate the ability of your support to roam around. And we're going to see a ward there in the Afreeca Freecs jungle from the side of PVB, keeping an eye on Mowgli as he moves his way around.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about how PVB's kind of play style and win condition with this composition is they have really solid team fighting, especially around the mid game. Trinity Force for Zeros, Trinity Force for Ezreal. Ideally, you want one item on the Galio, but all you really need is his ultimate. The moment these guys complete their first item, they can start looking for fights. Whereas for Afreeca Freecs, they have a little bit more scaling in their back pocket. You're kind of waiting for, obviously, the Trinity Force from the Ireila as well, but once she gets that extra bit of wave clear with the Tiamat, that's extremely valuable. You also want the 2 items on the Swain, things like the Zhonya's, things like the Rod of Ages. And for Varus, the Blade of the Ruin King is kind of what you expect to be his first item, which is a solid spike, but not the strongest mid-game spike. So they do have early pressure with the Olaf, but they're waiting a little bit longer than that. They don't want to be baited into these mid-game fights, and that's going to be the big point for Afreeca. How well can they manage PVB and their willingness to try and force these mid-game fights around the 20-minute mark?
PVB feels strong enough right now to steal away the blue buff now, as the second round of those buffs will be spawning. Meliodas manages to grab that one for himself, get back into the Rift Herald pit, jump over the wall, and he is safe. Good steal there.
I want to just give you some very quick anime knowledge here, Captain Flowers.
Oh boy.
Because Meliodas is...
Obviously, I hope you're watching.
Meliodas is the actual name of the Sin of Wrath in an anime, and I feel like that with that knowledge, you can use that to make a fantastic call in this game.
I will
Sin
try.
of Wrath, remember that.
The Sin of Wrath. All right, top side, though, is going to be Zeros looking to make the play on to Kiin. Heroic entrance coming in now as well from Naul. The backup is there, and the first blood goes over to Phong Vũ Buffalo. It is going to be returned, though, 1-for-1 so far. Naul getting himself back into Lamb's respite in time. The damage still continuing to flow through. He's trying to get away, but he will not. The double kill goes over to Kuro. Looking to clean up that jungler now as well. Flash away will keep him safe, but the fight still goes the way of Afreeca.
Exactly that, Captain Flowers. Things were looking pretty good initially for PVB. They tried to use the Galio very early on. He has his ultimate available, and immediately they go towards the top side of the map. They want to play towards their top lane carry. They want to get this Camille ahead, but the response from Afreeca Freecs was instantaneous. The teleport comes out from Kuro. Mowgli is there to offer support, and with the Olaf, with the amount of early game damage that he provides, he was the crucial factor in swinging that fight in their favor.
Well done there by Afreeca responding to that one. Sure, you lose your top laner, but he's still got assist credit for both of the kills, so he's not falling too far behind. You're still going to be pulling out to a very slight gold lead here as Kuro finds a decent little bit of damage there onto Zeros, who just wants to hang around, get this wave pushed out, get this lane pushed up, get himself back to base. Let's take another look at the fight here, top side.
So Zeros actually flashes in to land his ultimate, or land the stun into the ultimate, and then the Galio ulti comes in instantly, but you'll also note how quickly the teleport comes through for the Swain. Kiin does his best to buy so much time, flashing away from the taunt and just using the mobility of his Q to dash in and out of range of Zeros. And that allowed Kuro and Mowgli to both arrive and swing this fight in their favor, because Olaf just has so much more damage than the Kindred does this early on into the game.
Olaf is such an early game monster, not just in the ability to take the Drakes, but just getting into any of those fights. You know the champion can bring the pain. His bottom side, not going to do anything with the Kindred there.
We actually saw Zeros come towards the bot side as well, and given that he just lost his life and doesn't have teleport, this is going to give a whole wave of gold and experience over to Kiin, and nothing is going to be gained off the back of it. Real questionable decision-making there from the side of PVB. I wonder if they were just trying to force something on the bot side, maybe answer to some kind of early play. I'm not entirely sure, but definitely a big favorable advantage gained for Kiin.
Zeros now enjoying the fun game of being behind a level compared to your top lane opponent and just having to observe his farming as you wait for the creeps to be close enough. Stun comes down. Kiin finds that one, but doesn't want to go any further on it just yet. Mowgli making his way towards the top side of the map here yet again. We'll actually see junglers from both sides with the same plan here. Vedius, it's going to get bloody pretty quick, I think. Kiin wanted to start this one off. Stun's going to be found. Kiin in some trouble, absorbing all the damage here first. Disarm goes through. Meliodas has able to find himself the kill onto Kiin now as he tries to get himself away, but the follow-up is there, and the double kill comes in for Mowgli.
And again, it's Mowgli who's the key factor in turning these fights in favor of Afreeca. Every time it is PVB trying to play around the top side of the map. They're trying their hardest to get Zeros ahead. And if that was just a 2v1, it would have been an excellent gank, heavily in their favor. But the arrival of the Olaf, his early game damage, swings the fight in favor of Afreeca, while they're also winning on the bot side of the map. And so far, this early game is going heavily in the favor of the Afreeca Freecs.
Phong Vũ Buffalo tries to make the things happen, and yeah, they found their man both times, but then both times, Afreeca strikes back hard.
Exactly, and we can see here, Kiin, he knows he has his jungler behind him, he thinks he's pretty safe. There's Meliodas, and he's immediately more than enough ready to get this damage down and put the Olaf once again. We see how much damage he has in the early game. He's just sitting in the healing, knowing that the moment you come out of this, I'll find myself an easy kill, and that's exactly what he does. So multiple ganks that have now been turned around in Afreeca's favor. all coming off the back of Mowgli's arrival to the team.
Meliodas in the bottom lane from Phong Vũ Buffalo starting up the Infernal Drake now, but the Afreeca Freecs using the teleport. They want to come in and stop this one, and it looks like they'll maintain control over the Drake. TY for leash. They picked that one up for themselves. That's Elemental Drake number 2 going their way.
And Kiin, he used his teleport into the Drake pit to help secure that second Drake of the game. Xerath will be able to TP up towards the top side and get a bit of farm back in his pocket, but everything looking good for Afreeca. And Flowers, I had a great stat coming into this matchup where, on average, at Worlds group stage, you will expect to see around 21 kills in a game. So far at Worlds, Afreeca had only found 5 kills total.
They're already 80% there.
Exactly. 12 minutes into the game, they've already found themselves 4 kills. They've been really reactive in terms of early game playmaking, and also they drafted a strong bottom lane that's doing fantastically so far. 30 CS up in favor of Kramer. They've secured the first tower of the game. This is more of the Afreeca Freecs that many of the fans wanted to see and were expecting at the World Championship.
This is what I have been accustomed to expect from the Ezreal from our NA games. He loses so much early, and then the Varus is able to run around crazy in the mid game. We'll see if Kramer is able to pop off later, but right now, Afreeca is hanging around this top side of the map. Rift Herald is that neutral objective that's alive and ready to go, and Afreeca already has 3 men on it, looking to take that one down and use it to push yet another turret. We'll see if they'll get this without any sort of a contest. Doesn't look like Phong Vũ can get anywhere close to it. No, not today. And they'll give the eye over to Mowgli and head up top, maybe to use it immediately.
So this is what you do once you have secured the first tower. You already know that your bot lane is very strong. The first item has already been completed. You're sitting on a pretty healthy gold advantage. You just want to keep up the pressure for as long as you can. So while they may lose the bot tower, it's still in favor of Afreeca because this trade is still a tower up in their back pocket along with the Rift Herald as you identified. And if they take that mid tower down, it becomes a lot harder for PVB to use the Galio ulti to move to side lanes, try and force fights. And you can see their early investment went entirely into the top side. And if they had been able to pull it off, they could have traded top tower for bot tower, maybe even converted it into a Rift Herald, but they found no advantages in the top side of the map. They also lost bot, and so Afreeca have full control of the map right now.
Afreeca decided to use the Tahm Kench ultimate to get their bottom lane out of trouble as they summon up the Rift Herald here in mid as well. TP going to be used from BigKoro to make sure he's there in time. PVB trying to stop this one before it does too much damage. Will take that mid lane tier 1 turret very low, but with Rakan going around behind to hit the eye, Shelly will not accomplish her mission today.
Afreeca doing a fantastic job in this early game so far. They know where they have the gold and they know where to use it.
And I like the fact that they're saying, hey, Phong Vũ Buffalo, they're probably going to look towards the top side. This is a guy they like to play through. Xerath, he's a man who does some heavy lifting. We got a guy who knows how to do some heavy lifting of his own.
Very true.
Let's make sure they can't run away with that. The fact that they've recognized both of the big plays that Phong Vũ has tried to make up in that top side and have found successful counters so far, I like to see from this team, especially considering that people were having concerns about their overall performance starting off 0-2, not quite being up to the expectations that people were expecting so far, but now they're looking pretty good here in this game, 15 minutes in, setting at a 2,000 gold lead with 2 Elemental Drakes under their belt, and they seem to have control right now. This is a team that is known in the LCK to have a very high vision score compared to a lot of the other teams, and it's not specifically because of one person. It's not like their support is just only buying brown boots and control wards. It's because everyone on the team works together and contributes so much to that vision score. Look in the inventory, Vedius. Control ward, control ward, control ward, control ward, control ward. If you're gonna go flash over the Drake wall because the Afreeca Freecs did it, boy, you better have 2 control wards in your inventory when you do it because the Afreeca Freecs did it. You can't do the fun stuff without putting in the vision work, and that's how Afreeca Freecs can manage to build this lead even further.
I have never heard a man more excited about vision than you. Alex. Especially as an aggressive Skarner player. Those were not the words I was expecting from your mouth. But
you can't go into the enemy jungle and 1v9 people unless you're sitting in a bush with a control ward next to you.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Wards are important, and Afreeca, they have all the vision that they could want as they set up for this mid-tier 1. Kiin is off on the flank, sitting on top of that control ward, and that means that PVB will be forced away. 3 towers now to 1 in favor of Afreeca Freecs. 2,500 gold in their back pocket. This early game has been splendid from Afreeca.
I mean, Shelly didn't do her job earlier, but she set up a situation where Afreeca could just stroll up, hit the turret a couple times, boom, boom, boom. It's out of there. They've got the extra money, and now with the entirety of that outer line down, this opens up the possibilities that you were talking about where you don't feel as safe pushing out as far onto the map as you previously did. Afreeca can now move into the enemy jungle, get some more vision down in there, continue to try to choke Phong Vũ Buffalo out of the game as we proceed further into the mid-game. And 45 seconds from now, the next Drake will be live. We'll see if they decide to fight for it.
And remember, we talked a lot about item spikes for both these teams and how with PVB really on one, ideally two, but one item is a big spike for them to then look for these team fights. But the thing about Afreeca is they've already completed their first item and are now working towards their second. And that's a really big deal coming into these mid-game fights because they're the ones that are kind of looking more towards those second, third items. They're the ones that have the better scaling into the late game, and the fact that they're already so far ahead this early on into the game sets them up very nicely to match any of the fights that PvP tried to force at this point.
And it plays interestingly into the discussion that you and I were having about the Afreeca Freecs game against the Flash Wolves the last time they played. Because last time, Afreeca was the team that wanted to get ahead early going up against the Flash Wolves. They couldn't do it. The game stayed even for too long, and then the Flash Wolves pulled ahead, and they won the game pretty quickly. Afreeca's on track now to do the same thing to Phong Vũ Buffalo, if not even more stylistically, because they're already ahead. They're not just breaking even. This team is executing their game plan so well. And hey, if you're already building things up for late game win conditions, why not continue to stack Elemental Drakes? That's 3 for 3 going over to this squad.
Yeah, the moment it spawns, Afreeca lock it down. Mowgli, he's been really impressive this game so far. He read what PvB would try to do in the early game. He was always there to respond. He's maintained control over this Drake objective for the entirety of the game. And considering from the perspective of many analysts that Spirit was considered the stronger jungler, the guy that they more regularly used during the regular season of the LCK, the fact that he comes in on the world stage when the team is down 0-2 and has a performance like this is definitely a big deal and a big positive for the side of Afreeca.
It also shows that, hey, you can manage to switch things up like that and you're not losing something overall because Spirit is just so much of a level above Mowgli. You can make that change, shift that gear, and still be a team that's quite a threat to have to deal with. 2-0-2 on Mowgli with this Olaf, 100% kill participation. Of course, all 6 of the kills between the two teams this game have been in those top lane skirmishes that we saw break out earlier, all started by Phong Vũ Buffalo, but it looks like everything's been pretty calm since then. Nobody really wanting to make anything else happen. Like you said, Afreeca was all too happy to avoid the mid-game fights, scale up a little bit more, and Phong Vũ Buffalo, when you're behind 3,000 gold, you're not particularly looking for a fight either, so it's just going to continue like this for a while, it seems.
Afreeca do have pressure pretty much all across the map, and right now they're just playing the patient game. They know that they have pretty much winning lanes all across the board at this point. They know that PvB are a little more afraid to try and force a play because they just don't have the vision on the map. They can't see where Afreeca are and whether or not they could go for a safe play. And Afreeca are just slowly working towards those second items, which a lot of actually now come through. Rageblade is done for Kramer. Kuro has his Zhonya's fully completed, primed and ready to go. And they won't force Baron right now, but you'll see that become a much bigger objective, making sure that it's in constant darkness. Force PvB to constantly come and check in, and that's how Afreeca can find these picks. That's how they can catch these members out. And you can see now, just look at how much control Afreeca is investing into this top side jump.
Control ward after control ward being placed down, forcing Phong Vũ Buffalo to come out, answer those, and take them down. Blast cone over the wall by 3 different members of Afreeca Freecs into the Baron pit, not starting that one up yet, instead just making their way out. Pallet's going to see that one as he tries to just maintain some semblance of control over the river, but you can see Phong Vũ Buffalo, even if they can get a chance to push the waves out of their side of the map, that's about all they want to do. All right, minions, get the hell out of here. We're not going to deal with you anymore. They do not want to be pushing anywhere into Afreeca Freecs territory, not when you're having to deal with those 2-item power spikes that you mentioned. Swain with Azonia's Hourglass is a man on a mission. He can go right into the middle of the fight and just disrupt everything with no concern for his own safety. And for Phong Vũ Buffalo, both these teams, honestly, looking at the compositions, there's so much dive on both sides that when one side is stronger, you just got 2 big monster trucks, Vedius, and right now one of these monster trucks is way bigger than the other one, so the other one just turns into a road waffle.
Yes, But the funny thing is about Afreeca is they don't often like to put their foot down on the gas. They like to play it a little bit more patiently. They're not over-eager, say like an IG or an EDG or even a Fnatic are. They're the much more calm, calculated approach. As you said, they like to invest in their vision. They like to have information on where they're going. And if they're going to run you down with their monster truck, it's going to be a tactical rundown rather than
philosopher's monster.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, we'll put a monocle on the front of it or something.
And a top hat.
A top hat on the very top, right. Some sort of a cheesy gag like that. But Phong Vũ Buffalo will now continue trying to just set up in this defensive position. They've been on the back foot all game. They've got pretty comfortable there so far, but Palad's looking to go in now, starting things up onto the enemy AD carry. Tusin doing a good job keeping Kramer alive. Chains of Corruption not going to find their way onto Zeros, but now the counterattack has come. Lamb's fight is down as Zeros is continuing, going to be looking for that enemy AD carry. Palad's going to be taken down by Kiin. There comes your heroic entrance, but Kuro's grabbed the killing spree onto the enemy jungler. Zeros can't get himself away. It's a double kill over to Kuro, as Afreeca Freecs will continue to look to clean these guys up.
And PvP, they put their foot on the gas, and unfortunately, Afreeca was just the bigger monster truck. They turn it around so convincingly, finding themselves 3 very quick kills, and with no jungler on the side of PvP, this will be a guaranteed Baron for Afreeca.
3 minutes ago, you said Baron's not happening now, but very soon it could be, and very soon is now. Afreeca Freecs in the pit, looking to secure this one. No problem whatsoever. Mowgli has done such a good job in the jungle this game, and he's not going to miss a smite and mess it up now. Baron for Afreeca, 23 minutes in.
And Afreeca have just been nothing but reactive this game. Every play that PvP have tried to force, every member of Afreeca just seem to know what to do. The teleports come in instantly. The reaction is there from every member. And you can see, here's the teleport coming in from Kiin. The beautiful sidestep from Kramer as well. Tusin gobbles him up, and now PvP, they're a little disorganized. A great double root from the side of Kuro splits the team of PvP up, and now the Galio doesn't know where to go. He wasn't ready to follow up. He tries to go onto the back line with Zeros, but now they realize, oh no, we're too far gone. We don't have anyone left. And Afreeca very quickly clean up the rest of the fight, while PvP are left to run away.
And that Acer Predator replay showed exactly how to play a clean response game, like you said. There was no panic. Tusin was right next to Kramer where he needed to be, kept him alive, and Phong Vũ just seemed all over the place. Everyone was scattered, and as Kuro made his way into that back line, you run for the hills. Everyone was trying to get away from that, and Afreeca Freecs now sit in a spot where they're 7,000 gold up. Their top laner's now looking for blood 1v1, and he's found it. This is the Kiin people wanted to see.
Finally, Kiin finds himself a solo kill. Yes, a lot of pressure was put onto him into the early game, but they utilized that to turn it into Afreeca's favor. He's now primed and ready to fight. He finds the solo kill onto Zeros, and Afreeca have full control on all 3 lanes. The 1-3-1 is in full effect. Swain in the top lane, the Ireila in the bot, the Varus and Tahm Kench in the mid. PvP, their base is about to be attacked.
Here we go, Afreeca Freecs, no intention of stopping anytime soon. Still 10 seconds left before Zeros comes back alive, as Kuro is going to take down the tier 2 in the top lane. That was the last tier 2 standing. And now the siege collides with the walls of the castle that is the Phong Vũ Buffalo base. How long will those walls stand? If Afreeca Freecs have their way, it will not be long. Vedius cannon minions still firing away there in the bottom lane. Topside, Kuro is continuing to crash into that tier 3 turret as well, while mid lane, the same kind of work is going to be done by Kramer and Tusin as mid falls first, top falls second, bot still standing, but ever so barely. Phong Vũ Buffalo, it's looking pretty grim for these guys right now.
They want it, the 5v5. They can't find it though because Afreeca is just dividing the map up. PvP don't know who to engage upon because the moment they do, they're gonna lose something else from the map. But right now, Flowers, they are losing everything.
And as you see these health bars from PvP players move to each different lane, the other lane's inhibitors fall. Heroic entrance into the bottom lane, looking to stop Afreeca right here, but it doesn't look like they'll be able to do it. Into the back line goes Pallet, likely gonna be shut down here. Kramer grabbing that kill first as Naul's gonna fall second. It's Zeros in the back, gonna be taken down by Kuro, who finds that explosion and a double kill for himself. The crowd roars, and the Afreeca Freecs will push towards the heart of the base. It's only BigKoro standing, trying to potentially save this. But what can an Ezreal do? Afreeca 12-2. Turrets down, Nexus exposed. They'll find their first win.
And it was PVB who tried to force the early game action. It was PVB who tried to force the fights. But at every twist and turn, Afreeca said, no, we will outplay, we will outread, we will outperform. And they were the ones getting themselves the early leads. They were the ones with full control over the map. And this was the Afreeca Freecs that many expected at the World Championship.
And they showed up when they needed to. Starting 0-2, yeah, it doesn't feel great, but there's a big difference between 1-2 and 0-3 as a start. This team's now feeling good going forward. Heading into the second round robin, you can easily make a play for that second spot. Even for the first spot, if the Flash Wolves start slipping up, and Afreeca, they've got to be feeling good about how that went.
And remember that before this game, they had a total of 5 kills. They found themselves 12 in this game, Flowers. So Afreeca definitely looking more ready to fight going into the second half of this group.
Awesome show from them, and to break down that first win, let's head over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you very much, Captain Flowers. Afreeca Freecs have arrived at the 2018 World Championships, picking up their first win here in the group stage. It came later, rather.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's about time.
Exactly. They get it over PVB, who was sitting at 1-1 in the group. And now we kind of end up in one of those situations where it looks like Flash Wolves might go out to a heavy lead, and there'll be a bunch of 1-2 teams behind them. But I want to talk about this win picked up by Afreeca Freecs because we had teased them as the prep-heavy team, the team that will come in with a very clear plan and draft strategy. How did you guys feel about the way it broke down this time for them?
I think they were, first and foremost, able to recognize where a lot of their carries were in terms of their draft. You know, making sure that Kiin got the Ireila. They did use it as a flex pick. The Swain came in later on. You still don't really know where that's all going to fall out. So, again, very heavy use on the flex picks, very heavy use on recognizing where they're strong and playing through that comfort that Ezreal was talking about.
That's exactly where I was going next. Ezreal, you said it's all about playing towards strengths for each of these teams individually. There was a lot of talk around Kiin as a top performer in the top lane for Afreeca Freecs. Were you a fan of this draft?
Yeah, I think it made a lot of sense for them. I mean, they essentially drafted a pretty self-sustainable 2v2. It's one that's relatively hard to gank when you have a Tahm Kench down there. And then you draft Olaf that is basically going to make your solo lanes win. You're going to win 2v2 against the Kindred. And I think, you know, they drafted a very intelligent draft around that. They can team fight well. They saw that there was a lot of dive going to be coming through in the first 3 picks from PVB. That allowed them to pick up the Swain as kind of this counter dive. It's very hard to engage into the Tahm Kench, into the Swain. So it felt like they checkmated them a little bit in the draft.
Yeah, it did feel like what PVB picked up was never really going to work, even if they had a better early game, which they didn't have. But like when we were talking about the top of the day with the team comps that are diving, we said into a mobile backlines. Here you have one backline champion in Varus who has a Tahm Kench protection.
Yeah.
So they have such a tall task, and then this stuff happens as well. That puts them so far behind from the beginning.
It was just a huge party up into that top lane. It felt like every single kill, everyone was up there multiple times, and I think we finally got to see a little bit of that peak performance of a top 4 player at Worlds. I still wasn't quite sold on Kiin's performance, but he's at least bringing it back with that Irelia and springboarding off of the resources that his team gave him.
Yeah, you have to give a lot of credit to Mowgli. I mean, he was where the team needed him. He performed very well on the Olaf, I think, and honestly, when you talk about all the action on the top side, if it's going to be nonstop fighting on there, I really do question why the Kindred was picked up as the jungler, who I think really doesn't do too well in those early game 2v2s and 3v3s.
I mean, the other thing we have to talk about as well is the fact that on the bot side, Kramer and Tusin just winning the 2v2 on their own, for the most part, getting the bot lane turret early on and just getting about a 20 CS lead. So the whole team was really cooking in this game.
And I do want to say, because I know we talked a lot about kind of watching the game, the 2 bot lanes, people are going to look at the Varus and the Kench, they're going to say, that's super easy to win. Varus is always going to have the push priority. In the LPL, a lot of teams will lock in Ezreal when they see Varus because you can compete with the range, and effectively it's push priority versus kill and poke priority using that trading. And then when you have a hard engaged support like the Rakan and then a kill-oriented jungler like the Kindred, I think it was PvP's intention that their bot lane, if it gets shoved in, they have gank potential because they have the engage on the Rakan, or if they win the trade priority, that they then pull the Kindred, have that range and shove down the tower, but everything got redirected into the top lane, and that's where they started to slip.
I mean, that's what people always talk about with like resource allocation. It's a kind of a buzzword that's thrown around a lot, but that's exactly what it is, that you have a really skirmish heavy top side and a bot lane that might need the jungler to actually generate that kill threat, and then guess what? Kindred can't be both places at
Yeah.
once, and
Right.
both lanes end up falling behind.
So then what would you have, what were other options available to PVB in this draft to maybe alleviate one of those two pressure points?
So I think Meliodas went for, comfort. He was 8-0 on the Kindred. This is, his comfort champion. I think that's why he picked it more than thinking about the individual matchups. But if I'm thinking, separate from the player and just about the champions, I'd look at something like a Lee Sin, something like a Xin Zhao. That really does allow you to win the 2v2 and can actually challenge the Olaf, because I just don't think Kindred can really do that in the early game. And if you don't want to do that, then you probably shouldn't be playing carry versus carry top and a bot lane that is going to need gank assist.
Now, meanwhile, on the opposite side of the rift, we had talked about Spirit maybe being the better performer out of the two, or rather, expectation being higher for Spirit over Mowgli, but Mowgli was subbed in to help them get their first win of the day. He'll also pick up MasterCard Player of the Game. He was that spark plug, as you talked about, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, nothing like flashing over a wall at 4 minutes to get your team in Ocean Drake for some easier laning phase. I mean, if you want to start making an impact on the game, that's one thing you can do, and they were able to sneak that one away. A little bit of, help from the bot lane.
Yeah, and the thing was is that the Scuttle Crab was there, and then Naul right on time placed the ward. So PvP did all of the steps necessary to secure that dragon or protect it. Who expects the guy to flash over the wall? When it went down, I bet they're like, what the hell? How did he get in there?
And then the top lane influenced the fact that he did get up there, and Isaac's saying, it is a better 2v2 for them, but you still have to be there at the right place at the right time to win those, and that's exactly what he did. So Mowgli came in and completely revitalized this team.
All right, expectation would be that they keep him in from this point forward. We weren't ready to hit the panic button, obviously, for Afreeca.
I hit it.
You're right. You hit the
I hit the panic
Do you want to
button.
unhit it? Is there like a way to?
Well, the thing
I
is,
don't know.
is that
I don't think there's a
You
take
cannot.
backs.
There's no takebacks.
No takebacks
There's
on
no
the panic
takebacks.
button.
Oh, it doesn't even work.
It doesn't even make any
Don't
noise.
give away our secrets.
All right, that's game one in the books. After the break, we've got the undefeated Fast Wolves taking on G2 Esports. Don't go anywhere.